So recently I went to a feminist uh, talk, I guess you can call it. This place was hosting a Women's Week, wherein they were doing all kinds of ridiculous things. Um, and I went because sometimes I like to go to these things and just kind of hear what's going on. You know, I I I'm a big believer in listening to. I wouldn't call it the enemy or the adversary. I don't want to make it seem like, I'm out to kill these people or anything, but I don't agree with feminism in the slightest in any way, shape, or form. Currently, feminism I think is a cancer. Um, but I do like to see what's going on in their camp for the sake of education, to educate myself on what they're talking about and what they're saying. And so I went to this Women's Week event, and they had a panel of prominent women in our community. Um, they had some pretty high ranking people. They had a local judge, federal judge in our local district, two pretty high ranking women attorneys in their respective um, law firms, and then a female attorney that was not working as an attorney per se, was working at a very large multinational finance company, uh, as head of her department, and so she had a lot of people working under her, but not working directly as like in-house counsel or anything like that. Just her position was not necessarily going to court or anything like that. But anyway, all four of them, you know, very successful women that were invited to do this talk. The funny thing is they were they were asked by the group that was putting this on very leading questions. Very I'm trying to think of the word. Instead of asking instead of asking, for example, do you feel like women are treated differently in the workplace? It was they were asking, women are treated differently in a workplace. How have you been treated differently in the workplace? You know, those kinds of questions. Instead of being open ended and letting the women speak of what they thought, they were pretty much telling them, this is a concept that you have to agree with before you can answer the question. It's like if somebody asked you, um, do you like, and you have to answer yes or no. You have to answer yes or no. Do you like murdering babies and chocolate? Well, and you can't say, well, I do like chocolate, but I don't like murdering babies, because they're like, no, no, answer the question, yes or no. And there's like video footage of you eating chocolate, so you can't say no, I don't like chocolate. But if you say yes, then that means you also like murdering babies. So you can't, they've kind of pigeonholed you into answering the question the way they want it answered, because they can't ask you, do you feel like you've ever been treated differently as a woman in the workplace? Because what if you say no? So that's the kind of questions they were asking. That's the way they were wording the questions to these women. And it was hilarious because despite that, every single one of them, and mind you, these are very prominent women, every single one of them said, when you think you have like sexism in the workplace, like this discrimination in the workplace is a perceived discrimination. And I thought it was hilarious because you could see the room just very unhappy. Like everyone in that room looked like they had just smelled a fart. Like somebody had farted and it smelled really bad. And that's, imagine that look on your face. That's how every woman in that room looked when the judge said, I have never experienced discrimination in my time working. Like nobody ever treated me differently. And the woman working at the financial institution, she said, I get complaints all the time. Like it's her job to deal with complaints when women think that they're being discriminated against in the workplace. And she says, in my experience, every time I've seen one of these complaints, and I look at the people making the complaint, and I look at the people, for example, she said she recently, maybe like a few months ago, got a complaint that this woman was not getting paid as much as a guy. So somehow she had found out what this guy was making. And so she looked at the woman that made the complaint, and she looked at the dude, and the dude had been working there like 3 times as long. And so she goes, you can't do that. Like, you're not going to get paid the same as a guy that's been here 6 years if you've been here 2. You're not going to. That's not how things work. She says it's perceived. Like, just because you see a guy making more money than you doesn't mean that the guy doesn't deserve to make more money than you. You can't just come into a brand new place and demand that you get paid the same as all the men, because that's retarded. Okay. And the other 2 women, that not the judge, not the one I was just talking about, the other 2 that are high ranking, one's a partner in her law firm, and she goes, she experienced the same thing. She goes, you have to be careful when you start throwing out discrimination, because she goes, most of the time it's perceived. You're not really being discriminated against. You just think you are, so you feel bad. This discrimination in the workplace, if you're looking for it, you will find any little thing to say, ha, there it is. It's discrimination. It's discrimination because I'm a woman. You will find anything. Like, she goes, this one lady that she works with, she wasn't going to court. Like, she did all the research, she did all the legwork basically, but she was not allowed to sit in court. And she complained, and she goes, well, you can't complain. Stop. You can't complain that you don't get to go to court when you've been here 2 months. Like, yes, you did all the work, right? And yes, the lead attorney in this case was a man. But you have to earn the right to be trusted enough to go and argue a case in front of a judge, against another attorney that has that's been an attorney longer than you've been alive, right? So some of these people have been attorneys for 35, 40 years, and you just graduated, and you've been working for a year, and you're not going to go against that person. They're not going to let you take the lead in a case where millions of dollars are at stake, if that's the kind of law that you're practicing, where you're going to argue against somebody that has more experience in the field of law than you have been alive. Do you understand? So it's not discrimination. Yes, you did all the work. You did all the research. You put it all together. And now it's someone else's job to argue. Everyone has their place. And eventually, when you have been practicing for 20 years, you'll get to do that. And you'll get to tell a dude, I'm sure, do the research, do the legwork, and I get to argue your case. It's not like they're taking credit. It's not like, well, I did all this research, and this is, it's just the way the game works. And that happens in every field. It's not just the law. It's every field. You start off, and you have to earn the right to be put in those situations where you're going to be in charge. It's the same in the military. I was in the military. You don't come in to the military as an enlisted person and get put in charge of something. You're not going to get put in charge of a unit of 15 sailors. I was in the Navy. You don't come in and say, well, I'm brand new. I've been in the Navy for 2 days. I just got out of boot camp and A school and C school. And here I am, right? And I'm brand new. And, the chief isn't going to come up to you like, hey, new guy, how about you become in charge of, the shop? Go ahead and make the schedule. Any complaints come to you. You're going to have to solve all these problems. Also do people's evals and all this other stuff, admin stuff. No, you earn that with rank, and you get rank. One of the ways you get it, besides studying for your exams and doing a good job in your job, is time. Right? You don't just rank up. There are time limits. Like, you have to be in a certain rank a certain amount of time before you're even allowed to take the exam to advance to the next rank. You have to earn it, right? You don't just come in and you don't just get it. And that's how feminists think. They think that they're women, so when they come in, they're immediately going to get paid the same amount as anyone that's been in the job for a lot longer than they have, and they feel like they're entitled to those things. And every single one of those women, all four of them, and it was hilarious to watch. And they're like, all this discrimination talk, it's perceived. You have to earn it. They're not saying like there is no discrimination ever. There never has been. None of them said that. They said yes, it exists, and I agree with that. I think discrimination exists for men and women, for black and white, for everyone. Like everyone's biased in some way, shape, or form. That's just human nature. That's psychology. But to think that like women are particularly targeted in some effort by everyone to keep the woman down is just absurd. And that's basically what all these women said. And it was the best because the people who are on top. They're like, no, this doesn't happen. And it was I guess if you're gonna try to get people to tell you like, oh, discrimination is horrible, why would you go and get the most powerful women in the field? Like, well, I just think the most powerful women in the field, and you're complaining that there's discrimination, yet you still made it. That's not the best kind of argument to make. Like, I don't know. It just seems silly to pick those women if you're trying to get people to believe you that the world's against women. If the world's against women, why are these some of the most powerful people in the field that you've invited? And it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. But something else that I found that they all they handed out before the speaker started talking is this wonderful bias interrupters worksheet. It's just one of the most absurd things I've ever seen in my life. So, Women's Leadership Edge webinar on bias interrupters for male allies. Male allies. So this is what, if you're in a job and you see that women are being, discriminated against as a man, this is your duty, is to do these bias interrupters. And these are the most absurd things that anyone has ever put on paper. For example, let's go through these one by one. Women, people of color, individuals with disabilities. Prove it again groups. That's what they call them. Prove it again groups. Often need to provide more evidence of competence than others to be judged equally competent, which is an absolute lie. Everyone has to prove competence, right? Everyone has to prove competence. And in fact, thanks to affirmative action, people of color, women, and individuals with disabilities actually have to prove less competence, right? Because if I get a certain, like say I score a 10 out of 10 and somebody scores an 8 out of 10, but they're a black woman, they'll get in before I get in, right? Because affirmative action. So they've proven less competence, yet they are getting into something that I didn't get in. And mind you, I am Mexican, right? So just pointing that out. But I don't use these things as some sort of excuse or as a crutch. Like, I'm not going to, basically, I want to earn what I get. Okay, where I was born, the language that I grew up speaking is not an excuse as to if I didn't do well. I don't want to get something that I didn't earn. I would feel terrible. I don't need anyone's help. If I don't earn something, I don't get it. If I don't work hard enough and somebody else does, then they deserve it and I don't. Okay, if I work less hard or, sometimes I'm just not as smart as you, that I shouldn't get something ahead of you because where I was born or the language I speak or the color of my skin. It's ridiculous. So no. Individuals, these people don't need to prove more competence. They don't have to show more evidence of competence. That is not true. That's not true. Women's mistakes get noticed more and get remembered longer. Prove it. Show me evidence of that. You can't. And let's forget people of color, forget individuals with disabilities. Let's just talk about women because this was Women's Week. Women successes are attributed to luck or circumstance. Men's to skill. Again, prove it. Show me a single study where this is true. This is absolute garbage. Like, it makes me angry. as somebody who they would consider a person of color, this is absolutely just the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Objective requirements applied religiously to women, not to others. It's so stupid. Women grouped on their performance, others on their potential. That, again, show me these studies. Show me the studies where these things were found to be true. I've never met in my life anyone who, I'm just gonna go with the military, because that's my experience. When somebody did something, they earned it, right? When somebody did something good, they got the kudos. That's what we did. Like in the morning, when I was in charge, I would come up and like, hey, so and so, Sailor X, did an excellent job yesterday. Let's all give a round of applause to them for and acknowledge their hard work, man or woman. I didn't like, if you did a good job, you did a good job. I've never experienced in my life when a woman made a mistake and we're like, we'll remember this forever, you dumb woman. This is absolutely absurd. Stolen idea. A woman makes a suggestion in a meeting, a man gets credit for it. That's never been done. I've never heard of that. So what you should say, these are the bias interrupters. So if you're in a meeting, say, I think we have now realized what we were looking for. Someone with A, B, and C. These are the criteria. Let's go back to the top of the pile, make sure we picked everyone up who has those qualifications. If this were true, then there would be no affirmative action, because I've said this a billion times. If I have a business and I'm trying to run a particular type of business, and I put out applications, and the best applicants are all black lesbian women, then that's who I'm going to hire. I'm going to hire all black lesbian women. Okay? I don't care that they're black. I don't care that they're lesbian. I don't care that they're women. If for the particular job that I need done, those are the best qualified people, then those are the people I'm going to hire. If they all happen to be white, straight men, then that's who I'm going to hire. It has nothing to do with anything but your qualifications and your skills and your performance. That's what matters to me. That's what should matter to everyone. I've always said, if I'm ever in a position to hire, what I'm going to do is I'm going to block out your name. I'm going to block out your name. I'm going to block out your age. And I'm just going to look at your resume without any identification, okay? I just want to know what you've done, where you went to school, what your grades were, where you've worked, your experience, your accomplishments, your awards. That's what I want, okay? Acknowledgement of your success, and that's what I want to see. I don't care because I don't want there to be any kind of question that I would hire someone based on their skill and their skill alone. That is it. Okay, the end. I would tell whoever my secretary or assistant was, block out their name, block out their age, block out their race. I wouldn't know why somebody would put their race on their resume, but some people do, I guess. I don't want to know anything about you. I just want to know what your skills are, what your accomplishments are. That's what I want to know. That's how you hire someone. You don't hire someone, well, we should really get more women in here. If women are not the best applicants, then they're not the best applicants. Well, we should really get more gays in here. Why? There's no need. Like, nobody needs more gays or more women or more black people. What you need is the most qualified. And if those happen to be women, gays, and blacks, then get them. If white people are not qualified, then they're not qualified. Nobody says like, in the NBA, we should really get more white people in the NBA. It's not very diverse. Nobody says that. Why? It just so happens that the NBA is full of tall black dudes. Why is there no short Mexican dudes playing basketball in the NBA? Is it because it's racist, or is it just because they happen to be the most qualified people to play professional basketball in the best basketball league in the world? It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Like, it's just the stupidest thing. This is the stupidest concept ever, and it's infiltrated not just academia but government. Look at this pattern. He's assertive. Okay, that's how you describe a man. She's aggressive. No, nobody says that. Look, if you're look, okay, right here it says a bitch. Okay, nobody calls nobody says, well, if a woman is assertive and they call her a bitch, you know what they call dudes? Douchebags. Like, oh, he's such a douche. Nobody says, well, he's just really intense. No. Yes, we would be saying the same thing about a man. Yes, we would. If a man is an ass at work, then he's an ass. Nobody says, well, he's just assertive. Well, he's just, he's just intense. No. If he's an ass, he's an ass. People get called douchebags and asses and assholes at work if you're a man. And if you're a woman and you're acting that way, you get called a bitch. Nobody makes a difference. Nobody says anything different. Like, I remember that thing that they tried to do a few years back, ban the word bossy. You can't call a woman bossy because that's mean. What you call men? What do you call men? You call them douchebags. Nobody says like ban douchebag. Let's not call men douchebags. It just hurts their feelings. Anger, understandable for men, unacceptable for women. I've never seen that. Like, women should not be angry. When has that been a thing? Self-promotion. Are women expected to be selfless team players? No. Everyone is supposed to be a team player. Everyone is supposed to pull their weight. So what you're saying is women don't have to be team players. Women are allowed to be selfish people, is what you're saying, right? No, everyone should be a team player. Office housework, planning parties, note taking and billing. Assign an admin to do it or establish a rotation. Everyone do their own or establish a rotation. Or how about just ask for volunteers? Ask for volunteers. Who wants to, okay, office party, who wants to do it? Ask. I think that's the best idea. And if all women volunteer, then you can't say anything. Right? Because if the women are the ones volunteering for it, then it's the women's job at that point. Not because you assigned it, not because it's women's work, but those are the people who volunteered. If all dudes want to do it, then let them do it. The problem is, and this is true. If you get guys to do it, it's gonna turn out bad. I mean, let's just be honest. Like, basically, you're just gonna get. Well, let's just buy a bunch of beer, and then somebody's gonna forget to get the plates, or the plastic forks and spoons, because if you let guys plan things, there are certain things that guys like really focus on. Big picture kind of thing, maybe not. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I just see that whenever guys are put in charge of something, things tend to be overlooked. So, anyway, this is one of the big ones. The maternal thing, the maternal way. She's only part time because she's a woman and she had kids. She's only part time. So when somebody says that she's only part time and that's a fact, that's a factual statement. Um, you're supposed to say something stupid like, yes, but for matters she is in charge of, she takes full responsibility. That has nothing to do with the fact that she's only part time. Like, when would somebody say that somebody's only part time? I don't know. But if you're only part time because you just had a kid and you're coming back part time, which is what a lot of women do, then that's a factual statement. I don't know why you have to qualify it with a sentence like this. She's a mother. Or like if somebody did poorly, then you can make the excuse that it's because she has other priorities or she's a mother. So the only time that I feel like she's a mother, she has other priorities would come into play is if she did worse than her colleagues. Then you could say, well, maybe she didn't perform as well as her colleagues because she has other priorities, such as her kids. So I don't think anyone has ever gotten like a worse performance just only because she's a mother, right? Like if, oh, you're a mom, well, I'm just automatically going to dock you points because you're a mom. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make any sense. What's relevant is her performance, not her parental status. Right. But if she had focused on her kids instead of her work and she performed poorly, then I would say this is more of an excuse. Like I would say to somebody, she doesn't deserve, like she got a bad grade in her performance or she did worse in her work performance average this quarter. And I would say, yeah, that's true. Maybe she did, maybe she didn't. Or maybe if she did, that's probably because she just had a kid and she has other priorities. I think we can cut her some slack, right? Because she's probably staying up late at night feeding her babies. So maybe her work performance suffered a little because of that. I think that's not to say we're gonna dock her points because she's a mother. It's more like she did not do as well as she did last time, but that's because she just had a kid. Let's cut her some slack. Unless that's sexist. Unless cutting someone slack because of what's going on at home is sexist as well. I didn't consider you for that assignment because I know it's not a good time for you with the two young kids. You're supposed to say, I have a stretch assignment that would be you would be perfect for. If this is not a good time, don't hesitate to say so. These things come around from time to time. I mean, I think that's fair. I mean, I don't think that's sexist at all. In fact, I mean, you like, look, I have this assignment. You have kids. I understand. If you can take it, you can take it. If you can't, you can't. In fact, don't even say anything about kids. Just say, hey, are you willing or able to take on this assignment? And you say no, you say no. I'll worry about her kids. Based on the care and attention she gives her work, I think her kids are just fine. Like, I don't see how this is relevant in the workplace. Either one of these. I don't think either of these are appropriate. Like, if you're gossiping about someone, keep that out of the workplace in general. Tokenism. Make sure there's not a culture of only one woman per plum committee, team, etc. I agree. If a woman is not worthy of being in a committee, don't put the woman in the committee. If the committee is all women because they're the best people to be in the committee, then it's all women. You're right. Tokenism is bad. Tokenism is bad. The prove it again thing that we talked about earlier. Pass through. I don't want to work with women. They give me a much harder time than the men. What? I don't even know what this is supposed to mean. I'm not even going to comment. She's too feminine. With that little girl voice, no wonder she doesn't get ahead. What? That is the most asinine thing I've ever. Nobody has ever said that. Nobody has ever said that. Ever. She's too masculine. I wouldn't want to make partner here. The partners just turn into men. What does that even mean? What in the world is that? There are lots of different ways to be a man and a woman. No, there aren't. Everyone has their own way. No. No one has their own way of being a man and a woman. Being a man and being a woman are different. You don't get to, like, there's no one way. I mean, you can't just like, well, I don't even know how to respond to this. There are lots of different ways to be a man and a woman. No, there's one way. It's called being a man. And there's one way. It's called being a woman. Like, I don't get to be a man and breastfeed my kids. Okay, that's not a way I can be a man. Not true. And I don't understand. With that little girl voice, no one doesn't get ahead. What? It's like, are these? Who? How do you come up with this stuff? How do you actually come up with this stupidity? Next, maternal wall pass through. She's too focused on family. She's too focused on work. Young women have different expectations of balancing work and family. We need to keep up. There's no one right way to balance work and family. Happy families are not all alike. I mean, these are true. She's too focused on family. She's too focused on work. Okay, so my wife works with a woman who refuses to take certain shifts. Like, everyone rotates shifts. My wife's a pharmacist. They all rotate shifts. This one lady, she refuses to rotate shifts because her kids. She's like, I can't do that. I won't do that because I have kids. And it just happens that the shifts that she doesn't want to take because of her kids, she's using them as an excuse, are the shifts that nobody wants. Nobody wants to take those shifts because they're crappy. They're really, really early or really, really late. Nobody wants them. Single people don't want them. Married people don't want them. People with kids, people without kids, nobody wants those shifts because they're crappy. But everyone takes them because that's what you do when you work in a group. Everyone does their time. You know, you have to be a team player like we talked about earlier. But she will not, because she has to pick up her kids. Or she has to do something with her kids, or ballerina practice, or whatever practice the kids have. And nobody likes her. Nobody likes her because she uses her kids as an excuse to not do the job that she needs to do. Okay. Um, it's not like she got hired to work only at that shift. Everyone got hired. You work in a position. You don't work for a shift. It's not like we're hiring you for the 9 to 5. No, you get hired as a clinical pharmacist. You get hired, and there are different shifts, and you have to work them all. Like sometimes you work weekends. Nobody likes that. Nobody likes working weekends. And sometimes you work the early shift. My wife has gone in at 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning before. Sometimes I work the late shift. My wife has come home at midnight before. And that's because you rotate through the shifts. And that's what you do when you work in a hospital, when you work in an inpatient pharmacy setting. And this woman refuses. She will not because she has kids. So, I mean, yes, she's too focused on family. I worked full time my whole career. My kids are fine. Well, sometimes women use these as excuses. Mothers, they'll use this as an excuse. That's not an opinion. That's what happens. And she's too focused on work. I want to raise my own kids, unlike you. Nobody says that. Who has ever gone up to a woman, a mother at work, and say, "You spend too much time at work. You must be a bad mother"? Like that doesn't happen. That is the most absurd thing. If somebody said that, they deserve to get punched in the mouth. They do deserve to get punched in the mouth. That's a horrible thing to say to someone. I I just can't fathom some of these things that have actually been said. And if they are, there's probably just one dude or one girl at work, one coworker that's just really rude. You know? I don't like who like this isn't commonplace. I have never heard any of these things ever in my life, ever in my life. And I showed these to my wife. I showed these to my wife as well. And these things don't happen. These things don't happen to her. These things have never happened to her, and they don't happen at her work. The only thing that she says is anything close to reality is the one woman, and she's just the one. There are other people that work with her that have kids, but just the one woman that refuses to do her share of the shift because of her kids, and she'll leave early. She can never stay late to finish her work. She can never do that. She can never work the shifts that nobody happens to like because of her kids. So out of all of these negative things, the only one, this is the only one down there. It's absurd. This thing just like this is feminism in a nutshell. This is the most asinine crap you can imagine. This is just so stupid. It's incredibly stupid. And from top to bottom. And like I said, the women that were there, they pretty much shut down this whole notion of women are discriminated against in the workplace. It just doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. They said it themselves. Even the judge was like, "This is dumb," and she even said, like if I see a woman coming in, uh, scantily dressed, she will shut that down. She goes, "You need to dress professionally, and showing your butt and showing your boobs." Her exact words, the judge's exact words. When you come in showing your boobs and your butt, that is not professional. Don't come into my courtroom dressed like that. And a lot of the women didn't like that. A lot of the women in the room were not pleased with that. But you have to. She says you have to dress professionally. You have to dress for the job. And I guess a lot of the women in the room didn't like to hear that. So I thought it was very eye-opening. Like I said, I don't really like to go to these things because the one before I went to, it was a very hostile environment towards men. There were like two of us there, and it was a very hostile environment towards us. Like just the things that people were saying in the room, just the most outlandish, sexist things you can imagine. Um, and this one I was expecting kind of the same, but this time they had I think the difference was the last time I went to one of these, it was a male speaker, um, and I think they were just angry at him in general for being a man, and speaking to a bunch of women. But this time, um, it wasn't as hostile because I guess the women expected the women in the panel to be, uh, I don't know, pandering to them, and they didn't. So I don't know. It was very eye opening. I really actually enjoyed listening to the panel. They were very very good, and Just goes to show, I've said this in the past, racism, uh, insults, and things like that. Like, you have to choose to be insulted. Like, I cannot insult you. I can insult you, but you don't have to take offense. And I've said this in the past. I'll say it again. Taking offense, you have to take it. Okay, taking offense is an action that you willingly take. Like, nobody can give you offense. You have to take it. You have to receive it. You have to take words and be insulted by them. Like, I can try to insult you, but you don't have to let those words insult you. Like, if somebody right now calls me a dirty wetbag, I don't care. I mean, that doesn't hurt my feelings in any way, shape, or form. I don't get insulted by it. I don't get angry. I honestly don't care because what? I don't care. It doesn't mean anything to me. It doesn't mean anything. Like, somebody calls me a beaner. I don't care. What does that even mean? That I like beans? Yeah, I eat beans. Mexicans eat beans. Beans and rice. Rice and beans. Okay. How's that insulting? You have to let that. It's such a stupid thing, and you have to let it insult you, right? You have to let it. It's perceived. It's perceived insult. You have to take those words and let them affect you. You purposefully and willingly let those things affect you. So taking offense is exactly that. You take it. You can leave it if you choose. You can take it if you want. And this discrimination, unless it's outright discrimination, like actual discrimination, where somebody says, you don't get this job because of the color of your skin, then you can say, well, that's discriminatory. But that's not what's happening, except to, men and white people. That's who it's happening to, literally. So anyway, that's my little rant for the week. Not for the week, but for today, for right now. Anyway, craziness.